I blew through $30,000 starting and running my podcast business so you don't have to. And now I run a successful podcasting business, helping you do the same without having to go through all the mental turmoil and distraction that I had to go through. But to figure out how we got here, we need to go back. I was a late bloomer by every stretch of the imagination. I was 5 foot tall going into high school. I had braces all the way through college. I wet the bed later than everyone else. I would wear undershirts to my basketball games because I didn't have any armpit hair, and I was afraid. I don't know what I was afraid of, actually. I wouldn't go to summer camps because I was afraid I was going to piss myself. So I missed out on all of those things. All of these really, maybe character forming experiences that a lot of people went through when they were younger. We had these dances in around maybe like 12 years old, whatever it is. And most kids had hit puberty by now, at least by by the way that I was looking at it. I had not yet. And so you'd go to these dances, and you would grind on some ladies there if you were really, really bold at that time. It was kind of the expectation of you to grind on any gals. And I was grinding on this girl, and I think this was in high school. So this I still had not hit puberty. This is in high school, and I'm grinding on this gal, and the next day, my friend Henry, I think he just got married, so shout out to Henry, told me that he was talking to the girl and she said I had a pencil dick. Now, you can imagine what this could do to a male specimen. Obviously, we're insecure about our wieners. So, he said that, and so any dance I went to, anytime I wore tight pants after that, I would put socks in my pants so that people wouldn't be able to tell that I had, as this lady so eloquently put, a pencil dick. And so, this is just to give you a little bit of context around the type of things that were making me insecure. And so because of this insecurity, I started to just focus on such minute details about myself. I would, was my foot turned in 2 degrees too much when I was sitting down, right? There was the popular kid that went to church, and he sat a certain way with his arms on the pews, and so I would just, assuming because naturally he's the most popular kid, maybe I'll just sit the way he does, and then all of a sudden I'll be popular too. Crazy. I mean, just the reasoning was just ridiculous reasoning. And so I was going through extreme lengths to change myself and conform myself to the environment that I was in, and this naturally eventually translated over to the podcasting world, where now we are shooting and recording an environment. And how are we going to make sure that the angles are exactly where they need to be and the person is exactly the right distance away from the camera, and all of these subtle cues that when you add them all up, they turn into something beautiful, but when they're just by themselves, they do seem silly. And so not only were these insecurities making me obsessed about the little minute details, but it actually made me look so inward, and because I was so obsessed with how I was being perceived by the world, I started to look outward and see how other people were being perceived by the world. Because I was so insecure, I was seeing, okay, how long is this person saying in conversation? Are they making the people around them uncomfortable and they're not recognizing it? What's going on in the conversations that I'm observing? When are people checking out? When are people deciding without ever saying it, I don't like this person or I do like this person? What cues are they giving? Because so much of our interaction, I think it's some number like 70 to 80% of communication is body language, and seeing how people are reacting and seeing what's going on in their eyes and their smile. Are they smiling with their eyes? All of these details you start to observe when you are so insecure about those things yourself. And so we can kind of fast forward a little bit through high school. I was probably one of the worst students of all time that still turned work in, that still passed technically. I really, hopefully my mom skipped through this part if you don't want to hear this, but I cheated. I probably cheated for 60 to 70% of high school. And that's not an exaggeration. I am not a high school graduate by any stretch of the imagination. I failed out of it. And it was, so I would do these things where I would be, in order to even get past the math exam, the final exam, I glued my phone and used an app called Mathway. The younger people will know what this is, to under my calculator cover so that I could just use that on the exam. And it shows you how to work it out and everything, and so I was able to make it past that. I can go story after story for a 7-page essay that we had to turn in for one of our final exams. I just didn't do it. Not like I didn't even write up any bull crap. I wrote 1 page, and then I stapled 6 blank pages to the back of it, and I got an 85%, right? And this is like... That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. That is just not okay. But the reason that I was able to pass it was because I started realizing, the way that, well, I didn't start realizing it. The way that I passed it was because I made friends with the teachers, and not just to get a good grade, but because I kind of I just liked building relationships with people, and I would have these long conversations with my professors outside of class. And I think they just realized, like, hey, school isn't for this kid. It's not going to happen. Let's just get him through, for Christ's sake. I mean, let him go on and do something else. This is not going to work. And then, they probably got a good kick out of the fact that I stapled 7 blank pages to the back of it. I hope they got a chuckle out of that, because that is ridiculous. Oh Lord. And but that was a lesson for me. Relationships are going to get you through in life. They are going to, if you're at least not, practically skilled, how good of a person can you be with other people? Okay, and so we're getting through high school, and while I wasn't a hard worker in school, because I could not see where it was going. I could not pinpoint a direction from school. How is this going to get me to the goals that I want? My goals were very, very big. And so regardless, I was a hard worker when I went to work, which was at a country club, and I was rising the ranks. I was getting a lot of promotions, and I actually got a full scholarship to college through this country club. I mean, like, everything is being set up for me. I'm just in this moment, I'm looking back like, dear Lord, you really had things going for you, in the sense of, like, the traditional path. At least you could have kicked some ass. But full ride to college, full scholarship to college. Icarus flew a little too close to the sun, and naturally, you can probably guess what happened. Guess what? I fucking failed out of college, because I was a terrible student. That never left me. And so I'm a few years into, right, I fail out of college, but I'm still working at this country club, and I at least am perceptive enough to kind of recognize the environment that I was in, right? I mean, if you want to network, if you want to know where to go and know the right people to have these conversations with, you're in the right spot. I'm in there with, obviously, they can afford to, belong to a country club, and these are doctors, business owners, lawyers, you name it, and they're there. The successful people. It's the tier, the top of the tier of the area you're in. And I would notice that these kids that I was working with they were short-sighted, in the sense of, like, if I go work at this movie theater, I can make $2 more an hour. I'm making $10 an hour here. I can go make $12 an hour over there. And I just thought, you guys are in college, this is so ridiculous. Why would you go work at a movie theater when you can go and build relationships with every single person at this country club and make them get them to like you, if you have that skill? If you're a personable person, why would you not just stay here and think forward and think in the future? Think long term, right? You're thinking, how can I make money now? How can you start layering over and over and over again these conversations so that they go and benefit you 2 years down the line? But they weren't thinking that way. And so this was a very clear indicator to me. Like, I recognized it at this job. Hey, your network is your net worth. That's just point blank, period. It's a cliche, and it's a cliche for a reason, because it's freaking true. And so I at least knew that at this job. I had no career trajectory at the time, right? I failed out of college, 21 years old, so we're a few years ahead, and I'm just sitting, like, I'm doing this work. I'm getting hot. There was the country club, and so you had to hop in a picker in 100-degree weather, and you had to go pick up balls on the golfing range, right? Like, thousands of them. And so I would go in there, and I would just listen to these podcasts. I listened to these, Andy Frisella is a St. Louis guy. I would listen to his podcast, and I would either just get high, drunk, or both whenever I would go out there. So I'm at this point where this is a bad path. We're going down a bad way, right? I'm getting high and drunk pretty much. God, oh man, I wish Mom, skip that previous part. If you just watch that, forget about it. I was getting high and drunk, like, almost every shift, and I had forgot about that until just this moment. But anyway, so but the network is your net worth, and so I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no career trajectory, but I know I'm good with people, right? I've learned all these lessons from my life already. Why don't I just start telling every member I know, hey, I'm into sales. I'm interested in sales. I like the idea of sales. You didn't need a degree for it. It was determined by you. You're capped at your work ethic, essentially, right? The ceiling is less so, or is higher than it would be on a normal salary job. And so I started asking over and over, and just everyone, hey, I'm into sales, I'm into sales, I'm into sales. Naturally, what do you think happens? Well, of course, someone has an offer for me. I'm likable. I've built up relationships with these people, and they gave me a chance because they saw my work ethic. They saw that I delivered at the highest degree to the people that expect the most every single time, over and over and over again. I was on top of all of it. My work ethic was at least in the job. And so I was obsessive about making sure that people were being taken care of. People that expect to be taken care of were being taken care of, right? I would suggest working at a country club to all young dudes. Like, this is the place to go. And so I got the opportunity. I'm going in, I'm interviewing with them. And, one of the things that came up on the interview session was, hey, you don't have a degree. What's this about? And I just pretty much asked them, hey, if you can tell me how this piece of paper will help me make more sales for you, then, yeah, fair enough. I won't, you guys don't have to accept me. But can you at least explain to me how, practically speaking, what is this piece of paper going to do for me on the sales side of going out and meeting people that I wouldn't have if I didn't have a piece of paper. And they liked that. They liked that question. They hired me. They brought me on, right? And so I'm asking them this question of, how will this degree make me more charismatic? How will it make me a better communicator? How will it make me understand the interests and the pain points of my clients? Like, did they teach this? Or do you have to go out and actually learn this case by case anyway? And so they liked that answer. And they kind of, I communicated in that question and in that prompt, I'm here to solve people's problems. I'm not here to just flash a degree and hope that you buy from me. And so, yeah, they hired me. It was great. So I'm working for them for a couple years. And I was a terrible salesman. I didn't sell them anything. Brian, David, you guys were awesome. You should have fired me way sooner. But I really appreciate you guys giving me just a place to a chance. Appreciate you guys giving me a chance. But you should have fired me. I was a terrible salesman. We were selling pens and koozies, promotional products. Like, what I would get told over and over again by people is, you're selling trinkets and trash, because we were just selling like mass producing stuff. And then they were basically just going out to any company's giveaways or any company's events, and then this stuff just ended up going in the garbage anyway. And it was like so hard for me to put my passion behind that. I had no passion behind it because I couldn't figure out how it translated over to some sort of meaning. Now, in reflection, there absolutely are ways. Like, I know plenty of people in that industry that are seriously making an impact and seriously making their employees happier because of these things, but it's real strategic. That's beside the point. And so I'm in this job for a couple years, and about 2 years in, I'm sitting there I've got the bright lights on top of me. I'm sitting in a cubicle. All of the people around me are 40 years older than me. I'm around no young people. First and foremost, completely on me it was on me to go and be successful there. Like, if I were to talk to my younger self and he tried making excuses, hey, listen, it's on you to go do that. But that's beside the point. I'm in this job and I'm like, good Lord, so I need to do something. Like, I don't know what, but it can't be this. And so I just start my own podcast. I started with my good friend Jack, also left-handed, also born in July. We made a co-dating app, and I made sure to imply that we were also both over 6 foot. Yeah, but anyway, but anywhere that we would go, we'd kind of hold court. We would, if we were to go out together, we were entertaining people and talking with people, and they enjoyed to be around us. We're like, hey, let's start our own podcast. I think people like our conversations. Why don't we, this is how everyone does it, right? Oh man, that person should start a podcast. They're so interesting, or they have people would love to listen to them talk. And so we started it, and I think when people think that, you think, oh yeah, there's so much more that goes into it than just, because you have a good conversation. people are going to want to watch you. You have to market it correctly. You have to put out the right feelers and intros and teasers in order to get people to interested. You have to structure your episodes a certain way. You have to make sure that the conversations are flowing. You have to make sure you're not cutting off the other person too much. Make sure that you're not active listening with the mm-hms. Yep, mm-hmm. Because that distracts people. There are 1,000 different things that go into that podcast that people don't realize. And so I started to figure that out, and I learned it the hard way, right? We were doing it, and we were started to gain an audience, and we were getting 200 to 300 to 500 to 600. Like after we started building this, we were crushing it. But in order to get to that point, we had to fail over and over and over again. I can't, the amount of times that I missed a cable, or I have probably over 100. This may not be an exaggeration. I probably have over 100 episodes that just were never released because the audio was terrible, or the video quality was terrible, and the angles weren't correct, or I missed a cable, or one of the cables didn't go in. Like when I first bought, the very first time I ever tried starting, they're the USB cables is what they call. XLR cables are what most podcasts use, and I guess when I was looking them up, they were also called USB cables. I bought a micro USB cable for an audio box that took only XLR cables. So I was like, well, what the? I at that point, I'm like, okay, I might as well just quit, man. Because, I don't even know what's going on here. Might as well just quit because I'm literally one step into starting my podcast, and I have completely missed the mark already. So, but anyway, yeah, so just the failure. God, the failure. Oh, it was over 1,000 different things, and I burned through money. Because I was a hard worker, and because I didn't have any college debt, which was a goal of mine for a long time, I'd saved up $30,000 at this point. And my expenses were low. I was just, I'm not a big spender. I saved up $30,000, and that number just started going down very, very fast because I'm buying equipment, and I wasn't even selling it. Like, I wasn't returning it. I would use it and fuck it up. And so, God, well, I look back at that, I'm like, what a waste. Yeah, I'm just thinking about, every screw up that happened. It was the microphones we had, they were good at first, and then they would start echoing like 30 minutes in. And then, so we would get halfway through it, and then we would try to spread them out further away from each other. And then we're yelling at each other across the goddamn room because we're so far away from each other. The webcam, like the camera quality that we had was, like, not doing this with a professional setup, you just can't do anything with it. And yeah, it was just an absolute mess. Not even to mention the distribution platforms that you had to put it to, and going through getting it onto Spotify and Apple and YouTube, and making sure that these were all titled correctly, and putting all that up. That was so far off into the future. So we would just put it to YouTube because at least I knew how to do that. And then, you go from that. People think that they can start their own podcast, or they can run that. You're getting 10% of the potential you can get out of it, because you have to go and edit these also, right? And I don't even want to get into the editing, because that is all something in and of itself. The hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and the sleepless nights of figuring out how to just edit this thing so that it is halfway decent. My God, it felt like it was endless, just ridiculous. So if you had multiple people on the show and you're editing and you don't have the proper software and you don't know how to use it, you have to, every time someone talks, you have to go manually cut to them in the timeline, in the audio, or in the video track. And it would take, so I would be taking 15 hours for a 45-minute episode, which is an absurd amount, right? And you don't realize that unless you either are working with someone that already knows how to do it, or you're figuring out yourself the way that I did. And so the money was already on the decline, but this is where I really start losing money at an accelerated rate. And I rented out a studio with about 500 square feet that is attached to my apartment. And it was killer setup. It was killer setup in the fact that it was attached to my apartment. Everything else with that, it was a total shithole. The woman who lived before us, she had birds that she would just let loose in there. Like they were eating up the blinds. There was bird seed coming out of the vents. There were feathers in the vent. It was such a, I don't know how the leasing company didn't clean that up before for us. They didn't even clean. The basement right now, as we speak, there's the other unit's cage for storage, and then there's our cage. The other unit has a bunch of bird seed all over it, and like a bird cage is in there. And in the vent, it's down there right now, unless we got rid of it. In the vent, there's a bird skeleton. In the vent, I don't even know how that happened. Like, this is... So anyway, this just to paint the picture of what we were stepping into. And so we have this, right? And we start pissing money away because we're paying for rent now. And we're getting it set up, and we're doing... And the reason I say it was a killer setup is because we started a double date show. And so I would go on to these dating apps, and I would swipe through these girls, inviting them onto our dating show. And it took some crazy courage to come on a show, just to come to some random guy's apartment to be on a podcast. So props to the girls that came onto that. But yeah, we would invite them in, and then, it was attached to my apartment, so it was just a great setup. We'd come over here, hang out after. It was a killer setup. Man, that was I haven't been, of the smart things that I've done in my life, that was fantastic. I built a lead funnel. I built a perfect lead funnel. I mean, a perfect lead funnel into my apartment. Wow. I don't even know if I thought about it until now, but that was a great. And so I'm in building that, like, I actually did, my mind kind of did reshift and reframe of like, okay, how do we filter people into these things, right? And this comes in later when I start talking about the funnel of building up your own audience on a podcast by using short form and medium form and long form and what that funnel looks like. But anyway, yeah, it was just a total shithole. Aside from the lead funnel, it was a total shithole. And we're just putting up curtains and figuring out how do you build out a studio. Because that was a whole nother thing now, right? Before, we just had to worry about all the audio and the quality of that. Now, how do we actually set up an environment that looks good on camera for a podcast? And and the other factors that you have to consider too is, right, there's echo in this place. It's 500 square foot. It's tiny. How in the hell is there echo in this? I didn't even know how that. Right, and then in the winter, you had to turn the heat on, and so if you had the heat on, it'd be blasting over the microphones, and so you had to figure out what do we do here? Do we keep the heat off and just let everyone freeze? In the summertime, you're gonna get cooked in there because the air conditioning is gonna come on and make a loud noise. So like, these are just all these little factors that you don't even think about until you're in the moment actually considering them. And so it built up this whole muscle. Like, anytime I go into a scene, anytime our team goes into a setting, what are the factors that are going to be applied immediately, and how can we emphasize the good ones of that environment? Right. So we've gone through all of these trials and errors, and once we've kind of hit on unlock, there's always, in anything you do, there always just kind of becomes an unlock point, and we hit that unlock point, and so now we're dialed in. I mean, right, the audio's nice, the video's looking good, we know how to distribute it right, we're editing it correctly, we have the right software for it, we're dialed in, and we're crushing it. Like, and once because we had the conversation piece of things down, because of all of my trials and errors in life and my trauma, as they say, the interview section of it is killer, and so we're getting on these great guests. We're getting 500 views per episode. Oh man, I need to get back to that, because that was just we were dialed. God, we were dialed, and we were just conducting these right interviews, and so naturally, people are seeing this, right? I'm still at my sales job at the time. We're maybe a year into this now. I'm still at my sales job. Just blew through a bunch of money. A lot of my savings are gone at this point. And I get a phone call on my job, and it's a buddy of mine, and his mom is starting a podcast. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, so, shoot her, if she wants to text me or call me and ask a few questions on how to make it good. Glad to help. I've been through all of it, right? So people are seeing that we have it locked in, and they want to start kind of getting something from that. And so she calls me, and I give her a consultation, we talk, and it's great. And she's like, oh, this is so helpful, this is awesome. Hang up the phone. Next day, or maybe a couple days later, she calls me back, and she's asking me for more questions and more questions. And then she eventually asks, hey, will you just produce my podcast for me? Or can you help me? And I start getting other people that are reaching out and saying, hey, can you help me with my podcast? And I'm just like, hey, sorry guys, I have a job. I'm doing my own podcast outside of this. I just don't have time for it right now. And she offers to give me $500, I think it was. And like that clicked in my head. I was already not happy at the job that I was at. And it just clicked. It just made total sense. And so I think the next day I put my 2 weeks in at my job, and I realized, oh man, I've got just enough savings that can last me maybe 3 months of living. Screw it. There's a market demand for this. That's clear. Screw it. Let's go out and just start trying to get people, doing this for other people. And so that's exactly what I did. And that click was just such. So I had 3 months of runway, and in 3 weeks, I had replaced my income from my previous job. 3 weeks, and then you just know, okay, podcasting, this is a hot thing right now, but I don't think it's a fad. I think it's the next printing press. I think it's the next thing that's going to extend over a very long period of time. It's not just the next radio, it is the next printing press. And so once the money hits the bank, and after that 3 weeks, I'd replaced my income, and it was such a paradigm shift. It was the first time in my life that I was able to actually think, oh, you can actually be free. Like it was real to me. These motivational quotes that everyone always talks about, they're actually real. As cheesy as some of them are, these things are you can go out and control your own life. And something that was crazy is for the first time, I was only 24, 23 at the time. And for the last couple of years, I would wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom every night. I'm like, God, this sucks. Oh, this sucks. I have to wake up. And I know old people are probably rolling their eyes at me. I got to do that 4 times a night anyway. But for a young guy, at least it was weird. And after I started working for myself, I stopped having to wake up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I slept through the whole night. There was something that just totally shifted inside of me that I don't even know what it is. My security was up to me now. It wasn't up to someone else. And I think that there was just something at the deep subconscious level that could not truly feel secure under someone else's, quote unquote rule. And this stems from a bunch of childhood shit that I'm not going to get into. And so I would put this probably in the top 2 most important inflection points of my life, maybe right next to becoming a self-aware person and understanding that I am perceived in a different way by other people than myself. And so these were the 2 most impactful inflection points in my life, bar none, until I'm in my business and I start recognizing, okay, I'm taking patterns from my previous life and bringing them into this, right? What are some of those patterns? Well, you work 5 days a week. What do you do on Friday and Saturday night? You go out and you drink. And that's pretty much it, right? You get a reprieve from your week. And you can't, and I would be drinking every night of the week if I didn't have to wake up early the next day. And so by no means was I an alcoholic. I don't think any stretch of the imagination would say I was an alcoholic, but I was definitely going out and getting drunk on a consistent basis. And that was cutting into 2, sometimes 3 full days, right? Before, when I had a job, it was Monday through Thursday, I wasn't drinking. Now you have your own job, your own business. You're on your own now. You decide your schedule. And that is 2 to 3 days cutting into a business is not acceptable. That's impossible. I can't imagine. I'm sure that people have lifestyle businesses. For what we want to build and the quality that we want to deliver, that was not going to work for me. And so I had tried, a couple of these things maybe here and there, trying to give up or just saying that I was going to give up. But eventually I was just like, hey, screw it. Okay, I made a deal with a buddy. If I drink alcohol for the rest of the year, I'll give you $500. And that was enough. That made me quit alcohol. And for a full year, I think people do dry January. Maybe they even try 3 months. And I didn't really see this effects start to kick in until after 6 months of this pattern. Not only the pattern shift, the people I'm spending my time around has changed. I'm figuring out who's just a drinking buddy and who is a friend that is actually here to stick around. I'm sleeping better, which is just an obvious answer. The sleep quality went up by such a significant degree. It's not even close. It's such an insane shift, right? And then now I'm like, okay, well, I can still go to these events. I can still go spend time with the X people and not get screwed up not get jacked up. And now I can go work out after. I can go work on my business more after. The productivity of not drinking alcohol is just amazing. It's really, really just profound. And so talk about inflection point number 3. That is the one that maybe I'll dive deeper into in another video. That changed my life completely. And not to mention the bad decisions that you make while you're intoxicated. I don't make those anymore. And some of those you can't take back. And we'll just leave it at that. And so in this time, right around the time that I'm sober, I also form a group called Parium with at the time it was 7 other guys. Now it's 9 other guys. And it's just, and that was, talk about another inflection point. I mean, my goodness, now I'm realizing how many I have actually in my life. This is a group I had started with myself, my friend, and a friend of his, and we all started getting together, 3 of us, and decided, hey, we all are on similar paths. Insofar as we are motivated, we are critical thinkers, first principle thinkers. Let's invite one person that we think would fit into this circle outside of ourselves. So we each add a +1 and form a group. And so that would put us at 6. And naturally, a couple other people were added onto that. But now we had a group of 8, and we don't know what this is. We have no idea what this is. But we're going to meet on a monthly basis, and we're just going to see what happens, right? We'll have kind of some sort of idea laid out for each meeting. Who the hell knows what this is going to be? And this is maybe 2.5 years down the line now is where we're at. I don't even know how long we've been together. It started in 2022, so maybe 3 years now. You know, my roommate is someone from that group, and we formed the densest, most thoughtful friend group that I mean, I feel like I'm tooting my own horn here, but it's not me. It's the other guys in this group that are really exceptional. And we've started to build up this community. Whenever this video comes out, I guess next week on Valentine's Day, we're putting on a premiere event for one of our friends who is a filmmaker, but he hasn't had an audience to show his film to. And so we've got 150 people showing up to watch his film that he just created and totally produced properly. It's at one of the best movie theaters in the St. Louis area. And like, this has just been an emergent property from just getting together and starting that with each other and starting to having deeper conversations and just saying, hey, you know, let's see where this goes. Meeting on a monthly basis every time, we never miss. And that really showed to me, you know, you can be the one to build your community. You can be the one to build this up if you put in serious effort and you have a couple other people with you that do the same. And now at any given event, we can get 150, 200 people to show up and support someone that we care about or support someone that's doing something cool in the area. And learning how community is built has been so advantageous to us, right? Because that's what we're doing in the podcasting world, is you're building a community, you're building a trust circle, you're building people who want to learn from you and understand you, and you can be the one to create that community. You just have to have the vision for it. And so all this is going on. We've got all this. I've given up alcohol, and now I'm dialed, like we're dialed in. We were dialed in before, and now we're exceptionally dialed in because now we're getting all of this context and all these case studies. We have several different clients. We're understanding that this client has different problems than this client. Each one is unique in their own way, but there's also a theme that reoccurs of what's the normal, what are the issues that are going through the client's minds, right? Do I look silly on camera? Do I look bad on camera? You know, right? How are my conversations? Some people are worried that they're going to look foolish and ask bad questions on a conversation. Some are worried that they're not getting the right guests on. Some are worried that they're not reaching the right audience and they're not positioning themselves in the right way to reach the right audience, right? There's all of these things, and a lot of them are, hey, you know, I'm running a business. Is this going to feed my business the way that I want it to? Am I doing that properly? And so we're getting all of these case studies and dialing in, okay, this is how we solve this problem. This is how we solve this problem. And we actually can take context from different clients that we have and say, oh, we solved this problem over here, and this actually looked kind of similar to your problem over here. Let's insert this here and see if it works. And sure enough, it does, right? And so we're solving all of these issues now, and we're getting the outcomes we're getting. And as we grow and as we get more clients, the more context we're getting and the more valuable we can be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the way that this business is structured. And then so as I kind of hinted at earlier, right, when I'm talking about learning how to make lead funnels through my dating app to my dating game show to my apartment, how are we making a lead funnel in the content world, right? And it starts with the shorts on top, right? You have you're getting as much reach as you possibly can, and that's where the shorts come in. You're getting reach, you're getting impressions, you're getting recognizability. but that's not getting people to convert all the time, right? And so you want to funnel that downwards towards more medium clips. You think about the Joe Rogans, the 15-minute clips that maybe you can dive into. They're a little bit more digestible than a full-length podcast, and they're getting you invested. And now, okay, we've got people that have watched X amount of our medium clips. Now they're going to come in, I can see myself watching this full episode, and boom, you just locked someone in, right? And after they've watched a few episodes, they're totally committed to you, because that's, after a certain amount, I think it's 7 hours, people will buy whatever from you that you're selling. And right, think about how many shorts you have. Think about how much short form content you have to create in order to make, get to that 7 hour mark. You have to make a lot of shorts to make that happen, right? Over and over and over again. Whereas podcasts, you only have to make 7 hour long podcasts. Now, and that's one of the reasons that podcasting is so powerful too, is just the fact that some, in other marketing realms, a lot of this focused right now on the short form, the flashy stuff, the sexy stuff, which is great. We also can do that, right? We can do that through the podcast. But what a podcast provides is it's building up trust on the internet that you cannot get anywhere else. Because an hour into a conversation, when you're running out of questions or flowing naturally, people are going to see, who is this person? Do they cut people off? Are they just talking about themselves? Do they not know how to ask questions? Do they get emotional when certain topics are brought up? And in knowing all that, and that's okay to have flaws, because we all do, obviously, but now I know the person that I potentially might be working with. If you're trying to sell me something, I know who is selling me this. Is this person have they given me enough value over and over again to be able to say, yeah, I'll just kind of buy whatever, because I know this person. I feel like I know this person. And that's what we do, is we help people come across in a way that makes people feel like they know them through the screen. And you do that through a long form conversation, right? And so obviously, you can't build trust with people through 1 minute clips, but you certainly can through an hour long clip. You look at the most recent election cycle, and it's obvious. I mean, over 300 million views by the candidate that won, Donald Trump. To say that didn't play a part is just not looking at numbers at all, right? And so we see our governance starting to take this platform seriously, right? They're making this a major piece of their campaign, because they understand, and the fact that we haven't gotten to this yet is so crazy to me. Up until this point, we've had 8-minute, 15-minute long, interviews with campaigners and the people that are running for president, right? That's not enough for me to know who this person is. How am I going to vote for someone that I've only seen a 15-minute clip of? I want to see them in 2-hour-long conversations saying, okay, do I understand your ideas? Do I understand how you think through these ideas? Like, that's who I'm voting for, is who do I know better? Because ultimately, man, policy, and this is another tangent, but for me, I have to throw my hands up at all of the different policy, because someone on this side of this aisle is going to say, hey, these are all the statistics as to why I'm right. And someone on this side of the aisle is going to give me all the statistics as to why this is right. Man, you can, that's the benefit of a podcast, is you can go through all of those thoroughly. But I'm throwing my hands up and saying, who do I see as having the most character in this scenario? That's all I can do. And I don't get to that point without seeing who they are over a long period of time. And then now you don't have to strictly rely on the short form, right? I don't have a marketing team per se, because my business is a self-fulfilling prophecy. My business is my marketing department. Because when you make a podcast, you have the full-length podcast, and then you have a blog that you can go over here and create from it. And then you have behind-the-scenes shooting, photography that you can create from it. And then you have the short form that you have from it that you can have on a consistent basis going out, right? And so not only do we have this funnel, we have a whole marketing machine at our fingertips when we have a podcast. And so you could even just go out and say, if you're in a corporate world, I don't need to even hire this piece of a marketing department, because I literally have this podcast to cover all of the other things that this department would be covering, where it would take 5 to 10 people to cover what one podcast can do for you. And so despite how dialed in I was getting, I've generally been confident on the microphone, but this is going to happen to everyone at some point in time. You start to get a little insecure of like, okay, are people going to care what I have to say? Are they going to listen to me? Am I even going to get people? Are people going to see that no one's listening to my podcast and what I have to say, right? That is damaging to the soul. And I want to bring up and reference, because I think I understand how people go through this, but right? And they might say, oh, well, there's a million people that are already talking about what I'm talking about. First of all, that's not true. I think there's 155,000 podcasts that have published in the last month, something like this, right? And people think, oh, there are millions of podcasts out there. There are not millions of podcasts out there. There are not millions of people putting long-form conversations out there. This is a very novel thing still. Eventually, everyone will have one. I'm confident in that. But they're thinking, right, there's a million people out here doing this. Why would anyone listen to me? And I want to actually reference one of the most successful books, in my lifetime at least right now, as I understand it, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And I read through that book and I loved it. It was amazing, and I understand why it got so popular. But his book was just referencing. It was the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, essentially. That's what it was, right? It was just this book repackaged in a different way for a new audience. So that kind of taught me, hey, people, we're understanding, there's a right person for each audience, right? So for me, maybe I can't go and read Meditations, but I can go watch Mark Manson's book, and I'm getting the same value out of it, or the similar value out of it. And so there's, you are right for someone out there, and you're right for a certain archetype out there, that there's a certain amount of people that are going to connect with you, right? This is the reemergence of a lot of Christianity right now, and this comes into my interest of organized religion. But who was one of the people that did that was Jordan Peterson, and he wasn't rewriting the Bible. He was just going through something that had already been written and acting as a new conduit between the Bible and a new audience. And so people may not have been able to dive into the Bible itself, but they could dive into Jordan Peterson's videos and understand it, right? There's a person, you have an audience waiting for you at your fingertips, and you don't even realize it. And that's what I've had to come and realize after watching those examples and, reading through Mark Manson's book, for instance. And you're going to find your specific tribe. And this has all really been concretized for me through the community building that I've been doing, and through the Insecurities, and through everything. This is where it's all starting to make sense, right? Oh yeah, you can find your own tribe, you can build it up, and you can do it through a podcast. That's a very, very valuable way to do it. And even at this men's group, right, we've got 40 to 50 guys showing up to this on a monthly basis. That has been exhausting, getting people up to that number. Think about that. Think about just 50 people, and we see 50 views on a video, and we think, oh man, I'm not doing that well. It's been exhausting getting 50 guys to show up one time per month. And we're sitting here thinking, oh, my video only got 50 views, right? And I guarantee you, if you were to stand up and talk in front of 50 people, you'd be shivering in your boots, in your booties, okay? Right? And so take that perspective into your podcast. You're delivering this to 50 people, 100 people, whatever as we build, it's going to grow and grow and grow. You'd be nervous talking in front of these people in person. So treat it as such when you see that amount of people watching your videos in the first place. We're seeing this built up through the audiences that we're getting to the events that we're hosting through Parium. I don't need 600,000 people to be coming in and watching my videos. I need the right 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, whatever that, way less than what I thought it was. I need the right people watching my videos. And so I need to position myself properly on these shows to do so. And that is, right? So you're, like I was saying, you're going to have your own tribe. That's who you want. You don't want everyone outside of this tribe. I'm learning this in a men's group that I run, that we have about 50 guys showing up. And right now we're debating, okay, do we kind of push on the guys, hey, make sure you invite someone for the next meeting and next meeting and next meeting to continue to grow this? Or do we hold off on that? And I have some unique knowledge and insights on that because of the podcast world that I'm in. Let's hold off on that. I don't necessarily want 10 million new guys coming in. I want the right 10 or 5 to come in next. And that should tell you that this is an audience worth your attention. And so you think about this, right? And this took us months and months and months to build up to, and people want their podcast to blow up in the first month. That's just not how you build the right audience. You could maybe build an audience blown up in the first month, but not the right audience. And so what I took away from So I'm taking this away, right? I take away from the Parium side of things. Keep it tight, keep it small, make it the right audience. From the men's group, I'm also learning that, and I'm also learning, hey, this is going to be a grind over and over and over again, and I'm taking these two principles and applying them to the podcasting world. And so if you can't tell why I'm so fired up about podcasts yet, I've just seen the results of what this has done, right? I mean, across all the podcasts we've worked, we've got millions of downloads for them. We've got, we've had certain causes that are pushed. One of our podcasts has released a guy from prison that had a sentence that was way too long. And this is all coming from these things. Like, there are so many results that I've seen come from this, and just the relationships that have been built, the communities that have been built because of this have been profound. So if you're currently running your podcast, or you're looking to start a podcast, and you don't want to go through that turmoil, that all of the learning lessons that I've gone through, you don't want to piss away the money, you don't want to piss away your time, more importantly, you don't want to piss away your attention, maybe even more importantly, I'm here to help. Then it's important that you find a resource like ourselves, like our business, NobleLore, like our team, hand-holding you through it all, hand-holding you through the conversations, through making sure that, how to be aware on camera, through the technical side of things, through making sure that you're distributing it properly, to making sure that you have a marketing machine at your fingertips and you're using 100% of your podcast's potential. Whereas I see a lot of people using 40% or 30% of their podcast potential. And so you have us come in, or you have someone like us come in, and you make sure to have maximum potential used by your podcast and using it in the right way. So that way you're not just getting buy-in from your team, you're not just getting buy-in from your clients, you're not just getting buy-in for your business, you're getting buy-in on the story and the mission that you are telling. And so my question now for you is, what are the roadblocks to you developing the community you want, to telling the story that you want, to getting buy-in from the right people? What are those roadblocks? In a world where absolute nonsense has been flooded on the internet and trust for the internet has never been lower, how are you going to build trust there?